Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're tracking the literal essence of human energy. We hear about carbohydrates all the time, usually when people are talking about diets or cutting things out. But right now, we're going to trace their incredible journey from the macro foods sitting on our plates all the way down to the microfuel running inside our cells. To really grasp how absolutely vital this macronutrient is, get this, 70%. Carbohydrates are so crucial, so fundamental to human survival, that as the least expensive and most abundant energy nutrient, they actually supply up to 70% of the calories in low-cost diets in places like India. Foods rich in carbs grow easily in almost any climate, they store incredibly well, and they provide the major source of energy for people all over the entire globe. Now, if you've ever cracked open a nutrition textbook, you've probably hit a wall of intimidating chemical jargon. But let's clear that up right now. The word saccharide, it comes straight from the Greek word saccharon, which simply means sugar. You'll also hear them called hydrates of carbon, which makes perfect sense when you realize they are composed entirely of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. So, here's our roadmap for today. We're going to cover the body's ultimate fuel, simple and double sugars, the power of complex carbs, how we digest carbs, and finally, carbs and your health. All right, part 1, the body's ultimate fuel, the primary source of human energy. Aside from milk, which is actually the only substantial animal source of carbs, we get almost all our carbohydrates from plant foods. Through the absolute magic of photosynthesis, plants create these molecules, turning into cereal grains like wheat and rice, roots and tubers like potatoes, and of course, fruits. Every single gram of these carbohydrates provides us with a solid 4 kilocalories, or roughly 16 kilojoules, of rapid, highly usable energy. Moving on to part 2, simple and double sugars, the chemical building blocks. To really picture how our body uses this fuel, just think of these molecules like a set of Lego blocks. And the ultimate single Lego block? That's glucose. It's a monosaccharide, specifically a hexose, meaning it contains a 6-carbon chain. Glucose is the absolute king of the simple sugars. Why? Because it's the final form that all other carbohydrates are eventually converted into for metabolism. And here is the truly fascinating part. Your central nervous system, your red blood cells, and your brain rely exclusively on glucose for fuel. Your brain literally demands a continuous source of this specific molecule just to function. Now, contrast that with fructose. This is another single Lego block, but you'll find it naturally in things like honey, tree fruits, and berries. While it has the exact same basic building components as glucose, the arrangement of its hydroxyl groups makes it incredibly different to our taste buds. Fructose is actually the sweetest of all the monosaccharides, but just like glucose, because it is a simple sugar, it's highly soluble in water and requires absolutely no digestion. It can be absorbed right into your bloodstream. So the big takeaway here is understanding the difference between those single units and disaccharides. Disaccharides, or double sugars, are basically what you get when you snap 2 of those simple Lego blocks together. Common examples are sucrose, which is your regular everyday table sugar, and lactose, the sugar found in milk. Because they're double units, they're generally less sweet than monosaccharides, and your body can't absorb them immediately. They require a chemical reaction called hydrolysis to break them back down into single blocks before they can cross over into your bloodstream. Okay, part 3, power of complex carbs, the massive molecular structures. So, what exactly happens when you snap hundreds or even thousands of those little Lego blocks together? Well, you get polysaccharides. These are massive, incredibly complex molecular structures. Unlike simple sugars, which are sweet and dissolve easily in water to give you a really fast energy spike, complex polysaccharides are mostly insoluble. They aren't sweet at all. In fact, they're mostly tasteless, and their intricate structure means it takes your body way longer to dismantle them. But this is actually a fantastic thing. It means they supply you with a slow, steady, sustained release of energy over a much longer period of time. A perfect example of a polysaccharide is starch. It's basically how plants store their own glucose. If you look at the anatomy of a grain, the starch is packed right smack in the center part, called the endosperm, and it's surrounded by a really tough outer covering called the bran. Before our bodies can even access that incredible starchy fuel, that bran has to be broken down, and that's exactly why we cook our grains. The heat and moisture of cooking break open that tough outer covering, making the inner starch completely accessible and digestible for us. But hey, plants aren't the only ones hoarding glucose. We do it too. When we consume extra glucose, our liver and our skeletal muscles ingeniously pack it away as a polysaccharide called glycogen.
You can almost think of it as animal starch. A healthy adult liver can store roughly 100 to 120 grams of glycogen, and our skeletal muscles can pack away around 400 grams. This acts as a massive, rapid energy reserve. The second your blood sugar drops, a hormone called glucagon signals your liver to break this glycogen back down into glucose and push it straight into your blood. Let's bring this chemistry right into your kitchen. Have you ever noticed that toasted bread actually tastes noticeably sweeter than a plain untoasted slice from the exact same loaf? The answer is literally in the chemistry we've just been talking about. When you apply dry heat to bread, like popping it in a toaster or an oven, you trigger a chemical reaction on the surface. The heat causes hydrolysis, breaking those massive tasteless starch molecules down into smaller, intermediate chains called dextrins. Dextrins are much sweeter than raw starch, and they're what contribute to that beautiful golden brown color, the satisfying crispness, and that elevated sweet flavor profile of toast. Which brings us to part 4, how we digest carbs, the physical journey. Let's actually trace the journey these molecules take to become usable energy. Believe it or not, the whole process kicks off the second food enters your mouth. An enzyme in your saliva called salivary amylase immediately begins snipping apart those long starch chains. Then, as you swallow, the food hits your stomach, where the acidic environment completely inactivates that salivary enzyme, essentially hitting pause on carbohydrate digestion. The real heavy lifting is saved for step 3, when the mixture enters the small intestine and powerful pancreatic enzymes take over to finish the job. Following that path down the digestive tract, it's mostly down in the duodenum and jejunum where the magic happens. That's where the vast majority of starch digestion and the breakdown of those double sugars takes place. The overarching goal of this entire physical and chemical gauntlet is entirely singular. Break absolutely every carbohydrate down into simple, single monosaccharides. To pull that off, the small intestine uses what are essentially specialized biological scissors called enzymes. Now, I know scientific names can be kind of tricky, but their naming convention here is actually super user-friendly. Just look at the ACE endings. Sucrase dismantles sucrose, maltase breaks down maltose, lactase targets lactose, and amylase tackles the complex starches. It's that simple. In fact, when someone is lactose intolerant, it simply means they're deficient in that lactase enzyme, which prevents them from breaking down the milk sugar properly. So, the crucial point is what happens after those enzymes have finished their job. We're finally left with those single blocks: glucose, galactose, and fructose. Now they can finally enter your body. They get absorbed right through the epithelial cells of the small intestine. Glucose and galactose are actively pulled into the cells using a sodium-dependent cotransport system, which means they're actually moving uphill against a gradient. Fructose, on the other hand, just glides right in through facilitated diffusion. Once through the cells, they're deposited directly into the bloodstream, distributed straight to the liver, and then sent off to power literally every single tissue in your body.
And finally, part 5, carbs and your health, the delicate balance.
Ultimately, our biology relies entirely on a really delicate balance. So what happens when we throw that off? You see, carbs themselves aren't inherently good or bad. They are a strict biological necessity, but the dosage absolutely matters. A prolonged excess of carbohydrates, where the body ends up converting the extra glucose into fats, can lead to severe disorders like obesity, insulin resistance, high blood pressure, and heart disease. But on the flip side, a severe deficiency deprives your central nervous system of its required fuel, leading to weakness, syncope, which is fainting, confusion, and clinical hypoglycemia. Balance is literally everything. Which brings us to the final thought I want to leave you with today. We now know that your brain literally requires glucose to function, and we've seen how complex starches give us that slow, sustained energy, while simple sugars just provide a rapid, fleeting spike. So take a look at your own daily habits. Are you giving your body and brain the premium, sustained fuel it really needs to perform at its peak? Or are you just relying on a quick sugar rush? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope this gives you a completely new appreciation for the incredible journey of energy happening inside you every single day.